What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Total Human Optimization Podcast. Today, we have two significantly more attractive males in the room with me today, Mr. John Wolf and Mike Fitch, founder and president of Global Bodyweight Training. Now, John, tell everybody who Mr. Mike Fitch is here.
Man.
We'll let John do the introduction.
Oh, that's my brother from another mother at this point in time, man. You know, I spent some time with a mutual friend of ours out in Miami, Mr. Matt Pack of Primal Fit Miami.
Big Matt Pack.
There. And he told me this little backstory about his boy, Mike Fitch, and him doing some crazy body weight training in the front lawn, and that's evolved to this ongoing development of I think what now is commonly referred to as animal flow. So, you know, having the last name Wolf, thinking like animal flow.
You heard nature's
Wolf.
call.
I'm like, you know, what's Wolf spelled backwards?
Wolf.
Orlando, that's not correct.
Incorrect. So
No alpha brain today.
I tried, but you know, no alpha brain for you. Wolf spelled backwards would be flow.
That's true, sir.
The wolf is a majestic animal, if you didn't know. So, you know, I thought, man, you know what? There has to be something to this. I think we have to meet up, and we're going to have to figure out, like, well, where's the alignment with this awesome new movement that Mike started in a resurgence of animal movements in the fitness scene, and the things that I value, which are, you know, healthy movement, healthy joint function, multiplanar movement, a lot of cool stuff, but also keeping it fun. And I think that's something that Mike really does a great job of. He brings a great amount of technical knowledge, but keeps it light and keeps it fun. And we had this awesome pair of workshops this last weekend. So, you know, Mike, maybe you could tell us a little bit more beyond with the Animal Flow experience, like how you came to develop Animal Flow, and then and also we just launched something new this last weekend.
Yeah, we did.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, by the way, I'll make sure that I get you that cutback for that endorsement. That was very nice. I do owe you money for that, right?
Just like a quarter.
Okay, all right, cool. Just make sure we get that out there. Yeah, we had just an incredible 2 days here at On It, and I mean, just to be here in this space, which is just breeds creativity, and to be here with John's team and everyone else I've met, this is just, man, this has been a special weekend. I had since we had launched Animal Flow, it's been 4 years since we launched the program, and actually we have a few master instructors around the world now. We have 12 master instructors who can also teach the program and certify other instructors, and so I had actually retired or taken a back seat from doing the level 1 workshops in the United States until my good friend John Wolf said, man, we're going to do a special event. It's going to be Animal Flow level 1. I want you to teach it. I want you to teach it On It and do it in conjunction with the Bodyweight Athlete launch. And so that's what we did, man. And it just couldn't have gone better.
Okay. So you have over 13 years experience in fitness training. Obviously, you know, you're teaching new people with the certifications. So did somebody teach you these things? Or is this just something you developed on your own over a certain period of time?
Yeah, so with the Animal Flow, whenever I started in fitness, I started with a gym who put just an incredible amount of energy into educating the trainer and really put this emphasis on creating these trainers that questioned everything and really wanted to absorb more information about training styles, different modalities, different philosophies. And so I kind of began my career as this total fitness nerd, and I just, you know, obsessively gathered information about different training styles and different philosophies. And I went through everything, you know, went through Olympic lifting, went through kettlebells, went through speed, agility, quickness, sports specific stuff, became a medical exercise specialist, really became, you know, got into pre-post rehab. And I found myself where I was just lifting a ton of weights. I was doing a lot of strength hypertrophy stuff, and it just wasn't really resonating well with me. And I knew that I was way too young to feel that damn old, and I knew something had to change. And so I did the exact opposite. I put down the weights and only started exploring bodyweight disciplines. So at 30 years old, I got into gymnastics, which was humbling to say the least, being like the oldest and the worst person in the entire class. But that led to parkour, which really opened up my eyes about, first of all, I was not nearly as athletic as I thought that I was, especially being put in these environments where I was challenged to learn new things, having very little control over my body in a global sense. So the parkour was super cool though, because I spent all my life doing board sports, and I really understood being in the air, and so learning how to run up a wall and do a backflip, I was like, man, this is incredible. Like I dig this part of fitness. This is something totally new to me. So that led to breakdancing, led to circus arts, led to hand balancing, and I was just my mind was so ignited with all this new energy from these different inputs, and so I literally took all of those things and just spent hours and hours and hours on the ground and said, okay, how can I put these pieces together? And the animal component is one component of the animal flow, but it's only one component. And I'm always the first one to say I didn't create animal movements. They've been around for literally thousands of years. All I did was take some very basic animal locomotive patterns, and we say the ABCs of animal movements: ape, beast, and crab, and got very particular with how we teach them and how we use them, and said, okay, how can we use these animals that we're mimicking to improve the function of the human animal? That's where I was able to draw from my past experience as a trainer and understanding how the body moves in anatomy and biomechanics, and say, okay, how can we use this practice where we act like animals to improve postural distortions, to improve neural sequencing, to help someone just become a better, more conscious mover overall. And then the flow component came from how do we integrate movement and transition and disperse energy throughout the entire body. And that's really the flow component. And the flow component, there's flow in everything. There's flow in all sports. There's flow in music. There's flow in the way that we communicate. There's flow in everything. But it was really saying, okay, how does this flow look when we take away all the toys and tools and it's only you and the floor? And that's really the flow component, is saying, okay, how do you transition energy throughout your body, and how does that energy communicate with the floor, and how does your body communicate with itself as a result of that communication?
Right on. So I think a lot of people, and we've gone over this a billion times, when they first get started into wanting to change their life in a physical matter, and they do their diet thing, and the first thing they usually want to do is go run miles and miles and miles, or they want to just lift heavy weights. Those are the first things, because they don't have any other education on that stuff. So John, as you hear these type of things, and you've worked with a lot of athletes that come through here that have never really tried this kind of stuff before, what can we do to help people think of these things at first, and so that it gets the credit that this can help you before you enter those things?
Well, I think more and more, it's just about creating availability. So the thing about it is people are doing what they feel are the most accessible, available options within their skill set. And I think that's what you just said. Hey, they're not educated about the benefits of a system like Animal Flow, or even the Onnit Academy system, because it takes a long time to proliferate that kind of content. It takes, to be honest, it takes people who are seeking a better way. And man, I think Mike could probably tell you more about his personal experience, but that's everybody I've ever talked to. You talk to Aubrey, you talk to me, you talk to anybody who's trying to break the mold as to the hows and whys, and it has to be purposeful. So for me, I just figured out that I wasn't getting what I wanted out of the conventional training methods. I was getting strong, but I was stiff biff. I couldn't move. My joints, I had degenerative joint issues in my neck and my mid back from being in a car accident when I was really young. And all those things started to show up and started to diminish the quality of my life every day. I was really strong. I could still go to the gym, pick heavy shit up. But then as soon as I got home and I tried to turn my head or look up and down, I knew something wasn't right, So I think Mike had kind of alluded to the same thing, maybe not with the pain element, but just, you said you felt older than you thought you should. And that's really what I thought too. And I looked around at the gym, thought, man, all these people look like they're feeling older and older every year, and they're doing the same things. I had to find people that were moving in ways that I couldn't move, and then start to emulate that, start to understand what the building blocks of those are. Like Mike said, the ABCs. How do you go from not being able to move at all and learn how to developmentally progress. And it takes people who are willing to walk that journey first. So you have Mike with Animal Flow, where you could have just seen like, oh, I crawl on the ground, I do crab walks, bear crawls, and do these basic movements. And there's just so many ways to do it, right? But not all ways are equal, in the sense that if you just do something just to do it, just because it's going to make you tired, or just because it's going to make you sore, or just because you have an output of calories, of energy, it doesn't mean you're going to get the benefit of doing it the way that you could if you had a systematic, a planned, progressive, thought out way of approaching the problem. And so that's what Animal Flow does. You know, when you talk about these athletes that come through, you know, I think we all know your favorite sport and athlete has, you know, some wrestling, right?
Just a little bit of it.
Maybe one of your favorite sports, right?
Yeah, one.
So all these wrestling athletes, and it's great because they're high level athletes. They move in ways that are very dynamic, and their sport, their performances are they have a lot of demands. But sometimes, you know, the best athletes, they're still not the best movers. You know, and when you break it down and we can put it in a context, we're saying like, can you move this one piece of your body? Can you move it independent of everything else, in the sense that, you know, not to say isolationist in the sense like, oh, we just one piece is working. No, everything's working. But can you choose what's moving and when it's moving? You know, the rhythm, the flow of how the body works. And, you know, it's really about, I think, inspiring people that see someone like a Mike Fitch move online. You could see that there's gracefulness and there's power in every movement that's demonstrated. And I think that inspiring people in that way is ultimately the most effective way of getting new people to learn to adopt, like to get on the path, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think just to jump on that, John, you hit a couple of really great points. One, which is people do what they think that they're supposed to do when it comes to exercise, right? So most people think, okay, I have to now go out and run, or I have to go and I have to lift weights. And, you know, if you're taking someone who's relatively sedentary and you're going, okay, you can barely walk well, right? Your gait pattern's all jacked up, and now you're just going to go out and hit the pavement for however long and just get that force that's just coming back through your body and just
Guilty.
Yeah. Well, and so many people are, and that's because they're limited because of their limited knowledge, right? They're limited because of their knowledge, and they think, okay, that's what exercise is. Or exercise is me going and beating the shit out of myself in the gym and crawling out and feeling like I need to vomit. And there are so many places in between those extremes where you say, okay, but then also, John, you said, you know, where you're taking these athletes, and we had spoken about this the other day, where they're either lifting weights for the aesthetic part, and then the only time that they're moving, they're doing just the very specific movements that are to their sport, right? To where there's all of this movement potential in between that people are not tapping into, that they absolutely should be, but at the same time, your program, my program, so many different programs out there are pushing that message of learn how to move better, learn how to move more often, and learn how to be accountable for your quality of movement and be conscious with it. And I think that's where we're in a really exciting space in fitness right now, is there are all of these programs, and I'm always the first one to say, look, is this program the best? No, the best program is the one that you like and that you'll be consistent with. And the cool thing is that we're all speaking a very similar language. We're just using different terminology, different verbiage, or different tools. And so I think that's why it's so exciting, because we are kind of doing our own part to get that message out to where people need to move and move more often. And we need to get away from that idea of just when you go in and you go, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to exercise, and that's basically the only time you're going to move that day, you know, and I have to equate always exercise with movement. No, you should be moving more throughout every single day, and exercise should be movement, but that's not the only time that you should be moving. And so I think it really is that exciting time right now where we're seeing programs like yours, programs like mine, and so many out there now that are going back to that same ideology and that same philosophy where you need to be accountable for your movement and conscious of your movement.
Yeah, I wonder, you know, I think about our times today. You go back to the 50s and stuff like that, before the internet and before most jobs were all computer related. You know, how much time we spend sitting now in the days, myself even, working in an office. Luckily we have cool places. We get stand-up desks and everything like that. But, how much more important is that? If somebody spends 8 hours on a computer a day, some people don't get up for much more than just lunch. What's happening to their body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that whole idea of if when we look at loads, if you're seated all day long, your body's experiencing load in that position, and gravity is something we can't change. It's the constant, right? So our body is always experiencing the pull of gravity, and that's the load that's constant, especially if we're stuck in this chair. So is the answer to go out and then just throw a bunch of weight on those same exact positions or patterning, right? So there's so much more opportunity there to learn how to move in multiple planes, in multiple ways, and maybe do it in a way to where maybe we take a little while to where there's this kind of phase where we work on just learning movement, and then once you're structurally sound and your body learns how to move, then we can start to load it. But I think what people have the tendency to do is like, oh, you know what the answer is? I must need to add more weights right now. It's like, well, that weights are absolutely a fantastic tool in multiple ways, but maybe we should look at how your body moves just with the load that you have. And can you manage that load that you have, that you're carrying around all day long? Because that's the load that you're going to have the rest of your life. So can you manage that load? And once you get to the point where you can manage it, all right, cool. Now let's load the hell out of it. Let's put some weight on there. So I think it's that just where you have to start changing the conversation.
The conversation is exactly that, right? It's not, as we said in the workshop this weekend, it's not, hey, bro, how much you bench, right? It's like, hey, can you do a handstand?
Yeah.
And can you make it pretty?
Yeah.
And, there's still this quantifiable things, the objective measures, because are you still strong? I mean, I remember I hadn't deadlifted anything for years because the studio I opened in California, we didn't have barbells. We had completely committed, just like you with your journey with body weight training, right? We just completely committed to having a minimalist environment where everything was handheld, or it was the pull-up rig. That back then I had to build a custom one because they didn't have people manufacturing pull-up rigs, modular systems for that. So what that meant was, as I moved away from a lot of the things that I did for my personal strength development, years of powerlifting or bodybuilding inspired strength circuits and things like that, and people would keep on saying, like, you do all this mobility, it's going to make you weak. But people think strength is measured by poundage, right? So and the answer is really simple for most people. It's like, oh, you need to get stronger. So the answer is to add more weight. So it's kind of like how people think about cars, especially here in America, right? So like,
especially here in Texas.
Especially here in Texas. What's the answer? I don't like my car. It needs more horsepower. Like no matter what, it needs a bigger motor. It needs a supercharger. It doesn't need better brakes. It doesn't need better suspension. It doesn't need better tires. Threads are sticking out the sides. It doesn't matter. Just put a bigger engine in that sucker, right? And I think that's kind of the same thing people think about with getting stronger or getting more fit. But the funny thing is just 3 years later, all mobility training, swinging clubs or swinging kettlebells, probably didn't lift anything heavier than 70. Actually, I know I didn't have anything heavier than 70 pounds in that studio. And I didn't move anything heavier than the heaviest kettlebell I had there for 3 years. And then I went to a charity event. And the first of it was a CrossFit charity event for the local CrossFit. And the first event was max deadlift. So everybody got into little groups. And I didn't know where to fit in because I've never really worked in that format. I was like, oh, well, it was measured by, the groups were measured by what is likely going to top out, where you're going to top out in tiers. So I was like, okay, well, I went over to like the middle of the group, the middle of the pack. And, well, what are you guys going to be working up to? It was like 300 pounds. I was like, oh, that's not a problem. Okay, so I went to the next group and the next group and the next group, 400 pounds, maybe 450. This behemoth of a guy I walk up to, I'm like, hello, sir. What are you going to do in your group? So I think I'm going to hit a PR, right? 525. I was like, well, where are you going to start? He's like, well, we'll start somewhere in the 350 range. I was like, okay, well, I can start there, and then whenever I'm done, I'm going to tap out, and just let you keep on climbing. And it was just like 3 of us in the A group or whatever. And, that day, the most I'd ever deadlifted up to that time was 505 pounds. And I just stopped because I was getting really rigid. My neck wasn't happy. My mid-back wasn't happy. That day, I deadlifted 505 pounds after 3 years of no heavy strength training. 70 pounds, heaviest kettlebell. And I think that's when it started clicking. This was several years ago. Like, strength, it can be obtained and maintained in so many different ways, and I just chose at that point in time. Like, I like to go measure, those ways. It's gratifying to go and pick up something heavy and to demonstrate a level of proficiency in generating the amount of tension I need, not only to move that weight, but to protect my body at the same time. Because I don't really care about the weight. I could probably deadlift more if I didn't care about my body, but
that weight doesn't care about you either, and that's the messed up part.
That's the sad truth, right?
Yeah.
But the stuff that we worked in this last weekend, the lateral stabilization, going through a movement like the crab reach, all of that, fires off just as much muscle as the last time I did a 505 pound deadlift here at our gym. All those lateral stabilizers are going up the side of my body, and firing off. I mean, I feel just as activated right now after my weekend of training here, purely bodyweight movement, as I would moving 505 pounds. But the big thing is, repetitiously, I couldn't do the 505 pounds for 8 hours a day for 2 days.
Right.
And so that's the trippy thing. I don't really, there's no way to make people understand that not everything is so easily measured, and that's the qualitative approach that Mike was talking about. People need to be accountable to more than just the number of pounds they can pick up. It has to be something that you take pride in, the process and the quality of your movement, the demonstration of skill with your body. And that's something that I really appreciate in watching Mike over the years, from that first conversation with my buddy driving through Miami. He's like, oh, my buddy Mike's not in town, but check out his stuff. And I was checking out Animal Flow, and I saw the first evolution of the content. Then I got Mike to come out to California and do a workshop with me there. And I saw continued evolution of week after week, day after day, of the Animal Flow content and of Mike's expression of movement. And then to see from one year to the next, that evolution is so easy to differentiate, to be able to say, like, man, that's really beautiful movement and it's really strong. But there's no number attached to it. It's something that I could recognize. It's something that, we would argue a lot of times in our presentation, like a child could look at beautiful, strong movement and appreciate it. And that's one of those things. It's an intangible, but I find it continually inspirational.
And I appreciate you saying that, John. And that's one of those things that I always like to communicate with anyone else that's taking the program is, this journey is very intimate and very personal for me. And I came into the Animal Flow practice not as someone who had been a mover their entire life. So it's not like I was a gymnast or I was a dancer, or even, I had some experience with martial arts, but nothing substantial. So I learned these disciplines and created the Animal Flow as an adult mover. And I tell everyone, look, it took me 3 months to create the Animal Flow program. It's taken me every day since to learn it. And literally every day I teach it, every day I practice it, I learn more about it. And we get to watch our other instructors and our other master instructors do the same thing and go through that evolution. And I've watched the program change by watching them and watching other people move and experiencing my own roadblocks and my own sticking points within the practice. And so it really does, it ignites that whole idea for me of every day that we spend in our body, we should be that much better at it. You know, we should know how to use it that much better. And just that idea of like not accepting that the more time we spend in it, that it's just going to break down. You know, I think that's total BS. I think that the more time we spend in it, we should be that much better at it and know how it works, know how to use it, learn more and more and more. And that goes back to that skill acquisition. You know, the bragging rights have changed to where it's not about, bro, how much do you bench press, but it's about what can you do with this thing? Like, cool, it looks good, but what can you do with it? Yeah. You know, can you move it well? Can you show some sort of an expression of maximal strength, even if you're not loaded with anything else but your body? You know, so being able to do a handstand, being able to do a muscle up, being able to do a pistol squat, these things that are showing they're a maximal example of strength and skill and mobility and coordination and all of those things. And I think that to me is one of the most impressive things, is watching somebody and going, man, that was a beautiful movement. And just like you said, anyone can acknowledge and appreciate a beautiful movement, and it looks effortless and it's so appealing to the eye, and it's hard to look away from it, you know? And the same way, you can usually see an ugly movement as well and be like, damn, that didn't look right. You know, something there is not connecting. And so I love that idea of just constantly being a student of our own bodies and just constantly putting ourselves in that scenario to where we have to continue to learn and continue being continuous students. And even the way that our brain and our nervous system takes in information and creates motor engrams or movement files, basically, it loves to do that. Like, our bodies love to take in information and be really bad at something, because our bodies go, you know what? I have to figure out how to become more efficient at that, because our body's number one goal is to sustain life and conserve energy. So it's like, cool, there's a new task. I'm going to learn how to do that better. So if we're consistent with it, then we'll see that process and we can use that process to our advantage. But what happens is whenever we don't create these digestible pieces of it and we go, man, I want to look at that dude's doing a human flag, that looks badass, I want to do that, so I'm going to go try and do that. But they haven't taken the time to go, in order for me to do that, I have to build a foundation, then I have to do the brickwork, then I have to do this, and then I can eventually have this really great house or whatever. But it's that idea of like, we just want things now. We want things now. Yeah. And that's where it's nice to change the conversation and go like, all right, you have the rest of your life, God willing, that'll be a long time from now, in this body. So maybe in 10 years from now, you'll be able to do this skill, but are you willing to put 10 years of work into it? And then that changes the conversation of going, all right, well, even if you get there, are you then going to be satisfied with getting there? You know, maybe you should look at every day of that journey up until you get there, and maybe you'll get there and maybe you won't. But it really then becomes about the journey, and it becomes about everything that you learn about your body and through the process. And it never ends up being about self-mastery, because let's face it, you'll never be a master of yourself. It really is about the process. And I think that's one thing that hopefully we'll see that conversation changing and people accepting that idea more and more as we go along. And I think there's space for that now, where there hasn't been before. And I think there's space to where everyone can start to question things and go, all right, maybe that 40-year detour that we took into selectorized training maybe wasn't the best approach, but we did learn some things. Now let's kind of go back to the, okay, quality of movement, moving functionally, because you know what? The rest of our life, we're not going to have those machines that we're going to carry with us. Your machine is your body, you know, so how well can you manipulate that, load it, move it through space? And, you know, I love the idea of eventually getting to the point where you have to be able to deal with your own load, but you have to also be able to deal with external loads. And that's the cool thing that we talked about this week in the Bodyweight Athlete program is I'm by no means a weight hater. Like I love a good kettlebell, man. I love a good Olympic lift. And that's the thing. It's like, all right, so how do you still take ownership for what your own body can do? But then on top of that, once you have a solid foundation, how do you then still load that same pattern and learn how to create internal tension to move your own vessel, but then also create enough internal tension to move an external object? Because I think both of those are absolutely valuable in being a human.
Yeah. So I'm getting a sense from and I haven't done any of these things before. I need to go work with John. I haven't had the opportunity yet, but I'm getting a sense that these type of movements and learning these type of things is not only a physical matter, it's also almost in a sense a spiritual matter with your mind. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it definitely can be, and I think you can kind of decide how deep you want to go into it, right? And I think if nothing else, I think it can be a spiritual journey, but I think if nothing else, it should be a conscious journey. And I think that's my big message, is that so many of us are disconnected from our bodies and disconnected from our place in space unless we experience pain. And like, man, so if that's the only time you thought about your knee is because it hurt, and it's like, it's that idea of staying more connected to your body throughout the day, but then also, just be accountable for it as it traverses its environment, or, as it moves through space, or as it interacts with other people or other loads or whatever. But it's just being conscious of it and being connected to it. And I think so often most people are just disconnected. And then even when they do go in and work out, their focus is on the object. So it's on the treadmill, it's on the thing that they need to move, it's on the, the other people in the gym. And rarely is it turning internally and going, okay, there's so much going on that my body's sending, receiving information, and there's so much going on in my motor control center, and maybe I need to be aware of it. And so I think if nothing else, both of these programs, all of these programs really challenge you to reconnect to your system.
Okay.
That's really true. People like to externalize the effort, right? So everything's a measure of the accomplishment is set in, was I able to do this? Like I can pick up 225 today, overhead.
I feel so guilty because I know you see me in the gym all the time.
No, I'm not looking at. I'm looking at you not for that reason right now. Like, no, but you've been doing good. You've been moving some weight. You're getting a little swole on, And to be honest, who's not guilty?
Right.
That's the thing. Is like, man, this is just it's part of the process as much as anything else that we're talking about. Is like you, me, Mike, everybody. You go through different phases, different levels of awareness. It's just that, there's just more people that have gone through this process and this education, and maybe those people would be good to seek out to be guides on the next part of your journey if you want to take this step and be more aware and conscious. And hopefully that is a good step. I mean, for you or for that individual who it has to be a conscious effort even to take that step. Right? To be like, I want something more. Because if you're happy with the selectorized stuff and you feel great, like Mike's not a weight hater, I'm not even a hater at that level. If that's where you operate at a high level for you right now, that's great. There'll be a time soon, if you're in that mode, that will no longer stimulate you satisfactorily. Like, and the more controlled environment that you're operating in, the sooner that's gonna, that the effect, the positive impact of that training system, that mode is gonna come. And so if you're just a hamster on a treadmill and you do selectorized training on a machine, that might have a place, but it'll have just that place. It's like every other relationship. Is it for a reason, for a season, or for life, right? And so the thing about it is, if we get too attached to any one thing, other than mastering your own body, which is I think why it's so popular right now, that body weight training is really having this huge rise of awareness of interest, is because that's the part, like, all of the other things they can be overtrained and over specialized in, like powerlifting, aesthetically based training, even kettlebells. If it's used as in the context of a sport and not brought back to that level of awareness that Mike's talking about, where is it to move the kettlebell or is it to provide you input and be more aware of how your body's what your body's doing to move that object. Yeah. That's the check and balance. So it's a real sensitive subject for some people. Yeah. And I think that when you have someone like Mike talking about it, that's the great thing, is that he can be sensitive to where that individual is, right? And I think that's where both Animal Flow and the education that's provided and the context that it's provided in, and say Onnit Academy, or we talk to a lot of other people who are innovative or who are educators in a variety of different systems. The part that's really exciting is that the space for all of this stuff in the fitness scene has been made, and the level of awareness or willingness of the people that are interested to step up and participate is higher. But it puts a lot of responsibility on the trainers, on the people who are educators, on the facilitators, on the guides, to understand how to serve those people the best. So like for you, Orlando, if you step into the gym and say, hey, John, today's the day, then what I'll probably do is we'll say 90% within the realm of what it is that you find value in, and 10% of something that I know I see there's a need for, but will probably help you do those things that you find value in better, directly, fast, the most efficient path to improving the things that you want to do. And then as time goes on, if you find more interest in doing all the other stuff, then we continue to alter those ratios to the extent that we're meeting all of the things you want and all the things you need in one happy, like gift wrap package, and so that's the type of beauty that you can find in somebody who is open-minded enough to go through exploring all of these different systems, who's gone through and picked up the heavy stuff and put it back down and did the 10 reps and got did the curls for the girls, did all of these different things. Because I guarantee if you train with Mike, if he's taking clients that are in that realm, that's the other thing, right? So, maybe Mike's made the conscious choice to work with people in a certain context because that's where he wants to be. But if he took you on as a client, he could do all of those things because of those experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's gold, man. That's the thing that if I were to give advice to any fitness professional, it's try a bunch of things, try everything, right? Try everything, because if you have all of these tools in your toolbox, then you can find the right tool for the right job. And that job is going to change. And even if it's with the same person, that job's going to change. And as their goals change, as their abilities change, as you hit roadblocks, as you have setbacks, like you're going to need to have a multidisciplinary approach and go, you know what, today maybe we need to do mobility stuff. Maybe today you're ready to load up and do some really ballistic stuff. Maybe, a week from now you had a really rough night or a really, really rough week and you're full of stress and you're not sleeping well, and we need to do a lot of restorative stuff. And so my whole thing is don't get too caught up in being like, okay, now we only do this. Now we only do Animal Flow. Now we only do body weight training. It's like, no, you got to find where it fits in. And it may go in cycles. Hopefully it does go in cycles. And that's the thing. What serves that person at their particular point in their journey? And that's what it's really about. And giving them the opportunity of going, you know what, I educated myself in all these different disciplines so I can find the right tool for you today. And knowing that that's going to change over the week, over a month, over a year. And it's cool because I've had people come through the Animal Flow workshop and you could see that it wasn't gelling with them. Wherever they were at in their journey at that particular time, they weren't able to hear it. And they came back to me, like, this has happened a couple of times, the dudes would come back like 2 years later and go, I get it now. I get it now. Now I'm ready to listen. Now I know that I need it. Now I've kind of evolved from where I was. And maybe I'll go back there again, but now I'm open to hearing the message. And I think that's the cool thing is, as human beings, we get that opportunity to go, okay, I was really stuck in thinking that was the end all be all. And now I've had the opportunity to evolve and go back and say, maybe that's not going to serve me where I am now. And so maybe now I do need to open my spectrum and open my universe a little bit more and accept these new modalities, these new challenges, these new things that actually do build me up, and break me down when I need to be broken down.
And not be good at things all over again.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yes. I wasn't very good at several of the things we did this last weekend. So I think I know what you're referring to there. Right?
John, in my eyes, you can't do no wrong, man.
Yeah. So I think with the internet and everything and having people having more access to this type of stuff now, I think they're probably quick to think that this is all completely new stuff, but these animal flow movements have been for centuries. And so I was reading something on your website, and so tell me what these 5 animal frolics are. What is that all about?
And the thing with the animal flow, just like you said, look, and just with calisthenics, with animal flow, with anything, we're seeing this kind of resurgence in the popularity of it now. And it's one of those classic examples of how things are cyclical, and how what's old is new again, and how we've had that whole very, that selectorized machine, that step aerobics thing, that whole thing that basically just took over fitness for multiple years. Thigh Master, absolutely. the ab roller, everything great that's come out of the fitness industry. And so we are seeing that there is this whole new realm of things. And so like the big animal movements that we focus on, like I said, is ape, beast, crab, and we actually talk about how each one of those has a very particular impact on the human body. Then kind of as we get into more of the advanced stuff, then we get into like crocodile crawls, we get into something we call leopard, we get into more of a bear crawl, which is usually kind of the traditional, people think about bear crawls as one of the most kind of common, that and crab is the most common animal movements. Yeah, and that's the thing, it's, we didn't invent those movements, but we reinvented them in a way to say, okay, we're so meticulous about every single angle, about how the body communicates, because our whole thing is to be efficient at being a human being. You have to have the ultimate connection of your pelvis, your spine, your shoulders, and your head, right? So we want those systems to always be communicating. And if one of the ways that we can challenge it to become more efficient at communicating is by mimicking animals, that's not a bad thing to do, especially because it takes them outside of their comfort zone. Sometimes so much so to where you have to be sensitive of the psychological component of putting someone's hands and feet on the ground. The ground was such an important part of who we are. It helped us build the stability, the coordination to eventually walk upright, but we rarely return to the ground for exercise or continuing to learn how our body moves. So it's just that idea of getting people back on the ground, using things that they know are kind of allow themselves to be fun, So it's bringing that concept of play back into exercise. And of course we're very serious about like learning it, but then our whole thing is once you learn these parameters, there are no rules after that. It's like, all right, cool, now go have fun with it. And that lends itself to where people get excited about it and they want to do it and they want to spend time on the floor and they want to experience this thing that is totally new for them, even though it's been around for forever. So it does lend itself to that, to going outside of your comfort zone, changing what you thought was your comfort zone, and learning how to play again.
Yeah. So you have your Animal Flow DVD set, right?
Yeah. Well,
is it a DVD set or?
Well, we first launched the Animal Flow DVD about 4 years ago, yeah, and we've. Just like I mentioned earlier, the program has evolved since then, luckily, and so we just reshot it. So we reshot, and it's called Animal Flow 2.0, and it's all digital, and we're gonna launch that probably within the next 10 days. And so that's on the.
So is this something that somebody with zero experience can get? It starts at that beginner level.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's designed to where it's most regressed. So we break down, and of course, what you learn from the DVD would not be to the extent of what you would learn as a fitness professional coming into the workshop. But for an at-home person, for the general public, it's designed perfectly for them to where they can take in all the information. Then with practice, they can just get deeper and deeper into it.
Right on. John, have you gone through that whole series yet?
No, not the digital.
Because you got the in person.
I didn't get it. Yeah, I didn't get the sneak peek or anything like that. No, I got the in person exactly. Yeah. And so actually, that was this last weekend on Saturday. It was my second run through the Animal Flow program, and man, you guys keep me kind of busy around here.
Sorry.
No, it's great. It's actually one of the most exciting times of my life. But always having content going out, always being the teacher, is like just, it can be very draining. And so going through Animal Flow not once but twice as a student, I've just reaped more and more of the rewards of the process and of the practice of the education. And then, like you could imagine, as an educator, as somebody who does this for a living, teaches seminars and the professional development for fitness professionals, it's easy for me to be very particular about who I want to continue learning from. So this being one of the few seminars I've been able to attend as a student over this last year, it was just, I couldn't say anything better about not only the content, the development, the progression of the content, the accessibility of the content for the older gentleman that was in the workshop.
Yeah.
He was probably in his late 50s or 60s.
75.
Oh my gosh, 75. He looks great.
Right?
Man, the dude was ripped. I mean, but he was able to participate fully through the whole process. And not only that, Mike did a great job of making sure everybody not only felt successful, but was successful to the degree of their abilities within the context of what was happening at any given moment. So that's the ultimate litmus test for any situation, is like adaptability of the coach, of the system, and for anybody who's there, and I think that, to be honest, like as an educator, I just took so much out of that, not only from the perspective of like, okay, designing content and everything else, but again, it's just always great to be around other people you consider to be great teachers. And so that's something I'm always in there taking notes. I want to be like Mike.
We can't say that. Cut it.
Oh snap!
Yay!
Wow, man, wow, John. I love John Wolf. He's the best. And back at you, man, because this is one of the things that being a presenter, and I spend so much time on the road, and I'm feel so honored to be able to go around and teach these workshops to everyone. But it was my goal this year to go in and see and participate in as many of my friends, colleagues, and people who I ultimately look up to, and take their workshops. And so I got to get into John's workshop in Miami at Primal Fit Miami, and just to watch John teach and watch the way that he conveyed the information in a very light demeanor and super funny and humorous, but at the same time very potent in the amount of information, the quality of information. And just like he said, it just felt really great to be a student. I think, and I got that same experience watching him teach. And I think that's just such a cool thing because I think it is that duality. It's always being a student, it's always being a teacher. And I think when you get to be in that student role, when you're used to being the teacher, and especially if it's someone who's so profound and so meaningful and has such great integrity as John, it's just a great experience, man. So I'm glad that we've now had that kind of symbiotic trading places, and I hope to do it a lot more as we go forward.
Get Mr. Mike Fitch back here in Austin more often.
Yeah,
that's
we
the
do.
Goal. I've been trying to sell him on that. Move to Austin, visit Austin.
We
place.
were joking earlier, but I got the golden ticket, man. Like, I feel like this is the Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, and I feel like today I got the golden ticket. Like, I got
There's a river of chocolate hemp-force flowing.
there is. There's everything you could possibly want. I got swag, I got t-shirts, I got hats. I mean, I got to play on the Jungle Gym. It's just, yeah, nothing but good stuff.
That's great, man. So if obviously you said you're still working on the revised version of Animal Flow, where can people follow you, keep up with that information? And if they want to attend a cert, what are some dates coming up that they can find them?
So animalflow.com has all the upcoming workshops. Like I said, because this is a special event, this was the only level 1 that I'm teaching personally in the United States, but we have like I said, 12 master instructors worldwide. So we have multiple Animal Flow certification workshops going on at any given weekend. So they can find out more about that at animalflow.com. The other thing is we will be launching the revised Animal Flow, the Animal Flow 2.0 video, I would say within the next 10 days, so soon. And then January 1st is the launch of the Bodyweight Athlete program, and that's all online. That's very detailed, and we, like John mentioned, we had the workshop this weekend, which was the debut, which was pretty cool to do it here. But the actual program, where anyone can purchase it and learn from their computer at home, will be launching January 1st.
Awesome. John, you got anything else to add?
Nah, just still trying to put in my petition for Mike Fish to move to Austin, man. That's all. I want to get all my.
Just give him a nice plate of Franklin's barbecue, and then maybe that'll set it up.
I love Mike, but I'm not waiting in that line for Franklin's
You know what,
barbecue.
man? We went there yesterday, and it said sold out, like on the windows, and I was, what is that? What is that? That's a normal thing here,
Bro,
I guess.
Yep.
You know how it takes
Only the president
like,
gets to jump the line.
12 hours to smoke a good brisket, man. And, if it's not done already, then it's not going to be done while you wait.
No, it's true, but I was like, what? I hadn't seen that before, or it's just a big sign sold out all over the windows.
Yeah. Well,
Over
apparently
barbecue
it's
here in
worth a
Texas.
3-hour wait in line. So
Wow.
Yeah, I'll give you some tips.
All right. Well, next time, which hopefully will not be too long from now,
Yeah.
you guys can give me some tips on the best BBQ.
Right on. Well, thanks, John, and thanks, Mike, for coming and sharing with us. And everybody, check out animalflow.com for the upcoming revised version. And I'm sure I'll be getting on this. I'm sure, and everybody else should too. So thanks, everyone, and until next time, take it easy. Peace.
Peace.